Welcome to Year 2 of the Funding Love podcast. I'm Mallory Elrod.
And I'm Caitlin Duckworth. We are two adoptive moms that seek to love, support, and elevate all corners of the adoption triad, including adoptive families, adoptees, and birth parents.
We do that through honest conversation with both expert and everyday voices about all things adoption and more, all while running our nonprofit, Funding Love.
We create post-adoption experiences that strengthen bonds, build community, and restore people.
We are Funding Love,
the podcast. Happy New Year from the Funding Love podcast. There is something so exciting and hope-filled about the beginning of a new year, isn't there? I mean, being able to start fresh with new intentions and new goals for the coming year is a good feeling. On today's episode, Mal and I talk about our own personal goals for the year, as well as some of our hopes and dreams for Funding Love in this next year. I hope you enjoy our conversation. And once again, Happy New Year from Mal and Kate. Here we are. Welcome, episode 92. This is a Happy New Year episode. Happy New Year to our listeners. It is actually January 1st when this episode drops. So, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Caitlin. Happy 2024.
2024. I love the beginning of a new year.
Me too.
I do. I love the beginning of a new year.
It just feels like such a fresh start. Yes.
It does. It allows you to like where the end of the year, where you felt at the end of last year, where you're like, okay, now I can shift this and turn it anew and start on a fresh foot. Yeah, no, I like the beginning of a new year, something hopeful about it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything mystical or magical about the new year. And some people love to make resolutions, some don't. You do you. But I do think that there's something valuable in just a landmark reminder of, hey, if there's things I want to change, let's evaluate some things and we can shift some things. Or if there's something new I want to learn, let's start now. There's something new I want to implement, let's start now. So I think there's something just really valuable in just that calendar reminder of, hey, let's reevaluate and give ourselves a fresh start.
Yes, I agree. And last year, when we had this episode, we talked about the words that we chose.
Yes.
Like the words that came to us, the words that were like, okay, this is going to be our word this year, what we're going to I don't know, lean into or pray about, or what does it mean, whatever. And so your word last year was roots.
Yes.
And my word last year was rest.
Yeah. So how did that go for you, Caitlin?
I'm going to ask you first, Mel. How did that go for you? How did that word, what did that word turn out to mean at the end of the year? Like you had such these high hopes, or you actually had this what you thought it was going to mean. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how that contrasts to where you ended up with it.
Yeah, it feels so crazy to be here because this year flew by. And I know that every adult says that, but it genuinely did. I cannot believe that it's already been a year, because I feel like it was just yesterday that I was on the podcast talking about roots.
Bonkers.
Yeah. And I honestly, roots came to me. Picking a word is not something I do flippantly. It's something that I pray about. Occasionally I'll fast about it. And the word roots was just so vivid in my mind, and I was not excited about it. I told my friends that were closest to me, I told you, I was like, I feel like it's going to be a rough year. Does roots mean that we're going to have to, break back all the foliage, do some pruning, pull up some dead weeds, and get down to the roots of things? I was worried. Is it going to be a rough year? Is Funding Love not going to have enough donors, and we're going to have to get back to the roots of smaller programming? Or is, the things we're trying to implement in our family, are we going to be kind of rooted somewhere differently? Well, it definitely was a year of roots, but I'm still very confused about where I ended. I had a lot of different things happen throughout the year. We bought a second home in Florida. So are we planting roots in Florida? Are we trying to stay rooted in Georgia? I don't know. Still figuring that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we just, spreading our roots out? Who can say? Yeah. Funding Love really thrived as an outward organization. We added new programs. Yeah. We added families, and the birth moms had an incredible trip. We added Minnie Mouse. It was a lot of new things that was growth. However, internally, we've really been scaling back and figuring out where we have gaps in our support, in our volunteers, in the people that are running the programs. And so we really did end up investing and growing new roots in the internal
Amen.
organization of this group. So I can see how that word did apply to Funding Love, but it
Yeah.
was in more of a positive way, I believe.
Oh,
It
for
wasn't
sure.
something that
Yeah.
I was worried about. So
But it's still in like a foundational root way, though.
It
Like
was.
it's in like this, strengthening the foundation so that from there, because it's just going to be some massive growth, in my opinion.
Yes. And I know I talked a lot about doing Shabbat and some of the Jewish like feasts and festivals, and we did do that. I do feel like I learned so much more about my faith and God and the Bible, and so those roots grew too. But yeah, I it's different to see the perspectives because I start out the year kind of with a Debbie Downer kind of
Yeah.
feeling about it all, and it actually turned out to be great. So I just don't know that I feel like rooted in our family and the houses that we own, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. And we'll see how this next year continues to unfold, whatever your word is. Let's
Yeah.
wait for the reveal there. But
So what about you and your rest? You just feel so rested right now?
No, I feel beaten. No, I mean, in all the good ways, but I do feel like, gosh, emotionally and like spiritually, it was like a year that was not restful.
Mm-hmm.
It was, because last year started out, in February of 2023, when we thought we were going to welcome another child into our family,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't happen. And then, we have a new life update that y'all are going to hear about on the next episode, but that journey to that was not easy on our family, on our marriage, because I'm telling you, it's hard to trust the Lord. It is hard when you feel it in your bones and you feel it in your spirit and you're reminded and you have a peace that this is where the Lord has you, but other people don't feel that in your circle and you're trying to like advocate for that. You feel a little bit of like alone in that. And so that was not restful. But where I'm taking, like, after all of the heaviness, that I really felt like there was just so much heaviness all year long. And not like I'm feeling tortured. That's not what I mean. But just like in the decisions our family had to make, and like we bought a new condo. And so, which is all great things. But when you have all of those financial strain, all of those things that come with all of those new things, you don't feel rested. You feel a little bit heavy.
Right.
And so the word rest, I have realized, is I really feel like the Lord was saying, like, rest in me, like, rest on me, like, don't do this yourself. And like, this is the rest you need to find is me, not you trying to be the savior of your own world, you not trying to figure everything out on your own and carry all of these burdens. It's like, just like that verse, come to me all who are weary and I'll give you rest. It's really just like rest in me. And I feel like that is what that word meant. And it was very clear to me near the end of 2023. It's like, oh, well, that would have been, it was good. I mean, it was really good that, like, I felt like the Lord was with me through it all, and He did carry me through, because I don't know
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I felt like my rest ended up.
Yes.
So what about 2024? Let's talk about this. Mal's new word, new goals. Well, let me ask you first. Are you doing a resolution or no resolution?
Well, I don't really call them resolutions. I feel like, I don't know, that word. I mean, I don't mind calling it a New Year's resolution, because I like to encourage people to set them, whatever word you use.
But you don't have like a New Year's resolution
goals,
to, like, I don't know, have like a one end goal,
like run a marathon or something like that. No, not typically. I mean, sometimes. This year I don't. And I've sat and I thought about it, and I'm like, what is something that I would like to do? Like, for me, what I actually did this morning, even thinking about recording this episode, and I was like, you know what? No, I don't. Nothing comes to mind. I'm not going to force it. We're going to see where the year goes. But yeah, big drum roll. I'm choosing roots again.
Whoa.
For my word.
To be continued, because you never felt like it fulfilled its mission.
I do. I feel like there's still more for me to learn and dig into with this word and where the Lord's leading us. But I am kind of adding a tandem word to it, because I want to add in nurture. Because last year I felt like I was learning why I needed the word roots. Now I see the roots that are being established in my life. I want to nurture those things that are already there. I want to help things grow. I want to be intentional in choices and decisions and setting goals and setting timelines on things that we can see establishing in our life, whether that's in where we're living or our marriage or parenting or homeschooling. And so I am choosing roots/nurture, or maybe
Love it.
nurture the roots if we're going to say there's like a
you wanna-
phrase
you
instead of
wanna
a word.
catchphrase.
Yeah.
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 No, I love that.
So
Yeah, but how do you see that playing out though? Like, what are some things that you?
yeah, I think that
As a
again, I'm
family
going to
as-
learn a lot this year as we just journey through this year. I see that playing out through lots of intentional prayer and just asking the Lord for wisdom and discernment. We want to continue with Shabbat. Last year, we started doing Shabbats every week and taking a full day off of rest. And I will say, halfway through the year, we really fell off. We didn't fall off completely, but it just was not as consistent as we were in the first part of the year. And our kids and my husband,
That's normal.
they
Yeah,
all
don't
were
be too hard
like,
on
we
yourself. Yeah.
miss it though. They were like, we miss Shabbat. We miss the formal dinner. And like, we travel. So there were times when it's like, we can't do a Shabbat dinner. We'll just not work for 24 hours. And, we might light a candle or whatever. But we have like a traditional Shabbat meal where we recite verses and we sing a song and you eat and say certain things and cook certain bread. And we want to get back to doing that more routinely, like doing the actual full like meal and feast of Shabbat. So we're going to try to get back to that and still fold in those feasts and festivals of Jewish culture.
Yeah.
And then Tim and I have actually had discussions, and I know I might have mentioned it here in the past. I'm really not sure. I lead Bible recap groups every year.
Mhm.
I've done it for the past 5 years, and my husband's never done it. Never, not once. And that's fine. I don't even know if I've ever actually invited him to do it. But this year he said, I really want to do that with you, babe. And maybe we make it like a couples thing. Like we would encourage other couples. I mean, singles can come and join the group as well because it's all done through an app. But kind of encourage other couples to jump in and read the Bible together as well. And so in the Bible recap, we read the whole Bible from cover to cover, but in chronological order of events, the timeline event. So we're going to do that again this year, and he's going to do it with me, and we're going to be encouraging other married couples specifically to join us and read through the whole Bible together as a couple. So that's something that we're implementing. So maybe that is our marathon, because I can tell you, reading through the whole Bible in a year, it feels like you're running a marathon.
Yes.
But in the best kind of way.
Yes. No, I love that. I think that's a great resolution, essentially, to read through the Bible with your husband.
Yes.
That's essentially like a resolution. By the end of the year, you'll read through it together. And
so 2024, what word is coming to mind for you?
Maybe it's because we have the garden gala or something. I don't know.
But the word
the word grow is kind of like the word that has come to me. And I like that you have like roots/nurture, because I feel like mine's going to be like grow. I don't even know if these words go together, but like strength. And I think maybe like grow in strength, or just strengthen like the important relationships in my life. So my marriage, my relationship with the Lord, my family, like grow our family unit and strengthen those core things in my life that I feel like last year was just a little bit steady and unstable because of just all of the moving and shifting parts of the decisions that we had to make. And not that nothing like this sounds like my life is falling apart. No, my life is not falling apart. My husband's great. Our marriage is fine.
Yes.
All of that is good.
No,
but
you're being intentional.
Yeah, I'm being intentional. And I feel like where we kind of fell off some habits last year that are healthy for us, we need to get back to and continue to grow. And I can see 2024 being like one of our best years as a family, and as like finding our new flow and our new healthy habits, that sort of thing. So I would say grow and strengthen in those relationships and as a person, honestly.
Yes.
And see where that grows. But I feel like when you are intentional about those relationships, especially, with the Lord, I feel like you do grow as a person. So that's just like what happens.
Inevitable.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I feel like where it's good. We'll see how that ends up, what that word means at the end of the year.
Yes. And I felt the same way as you when I was thinking about my word. I was like, I don't know if the chicken or the egg came first, but this garden gala has influenced something. Am I choosing these words of, because bloom came to mind for my year too.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I'm in a place where I'm actually ready to
That'll
bloom.
be 2025. You're gonna
maybe
2025
will be the bloom year, but I don't know. I was
Blossom.
like, is my head just in garden gala mode, or was the garden gala somehow inspired by all of our growth that we want to do in this year? Who can say? But it's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a good year. And I think that in just a snap, we're going to be at the end of it having the same conversation saying, man, it flew by and it was so great.
Wacky. Yeah, I know. Time flew.
Yes.
So that's I think our personal new words, new goals for this year ahead of us. But for Funding Love, I know we had a little bit of a recap episode a couple episodes back, but I would say for Funding Love, like just to kind of recap a little bit and continue to inspire ourselves and our audience of like, where's Funding Love going in this next year? What is the hopes and the goals and the ambitions there?
Right. We don't have a Funding Love word. I wonder if we should start implementing like a Funding Love word. If we come up with one on this podcast, then people can just listen to it, come to us naturally. But
Bloom.
Maybe Funding Love's word is bloom. Maybe that's why it came to mind, because I don't think we want to grow exponentially next year. We had so much exponential growth in 2023, and I know we talked about that on our recap episode, and we would love for you to go back and listen to all the things that we did and were able to accomplish in 2023. But this year, I really want to run with all the growth that we had last year, continue those, not let any of it drop off. So we added the gala, we added the 5K, we added a reunion. I don't want any of that to drop off, but I want to continue to, well, I guess use my own word, like nurture it and steward it well. And if it's meant to grow this year, then let it grow. And if it's meant to just be on repeat, then let it repeat, and just continue to nourish and lean into those new parts of our organization versus just what else can we add? I don't ever want our growth to feel hectic or forced. I really want it to come naturally and organically, because I know that that's what will be the truest growth that we can have. So I really am kind of hoping for that for Funding Love to bloom and just like enjoy the flowers of what we've already planted.
Yes. And I think if I could say, like, if kind of playing on, I guess, my word and your word, roots and grow, is that I feel like we just mentioned this with Funding Love, kind of like you said, what you felt like the word roots is kind of tapping down Funding Love to the foundation and really nurturing that foundation so that we can properly bloom and grow organically and in a healthy way. And I feel like that's where I feel like this next year's for Funding Love is continuing to do the programs we have now, not really adding any programs. Maybe we'll see what happens, but really doing those well. But just kind of letting like the Lord bring us the right people so that we can continue to grow as the years go on, like a volunteer base that is consistent, even just the right team members to grow these programs. Like those are things that I feel like you need to grow well.
Right.
So I feel like that's what this next year will be, to play on the roots and grow and bloom.
And bloom and blossom. Yes.
And bloom and blossom. Yes. And garden gala.
And come to the garden gala because tickets are still available.
Yeah, please do.
Tickets and tables. So one other thing we are implementing that is new, though, that we did not have in 2023 is for the podcast. And we've talked about this briefly, but we're going to have a book club for the Funding Love podcast. I am really excited about that.
I am really excited about this. I think this is going to be big for our listeners and just for our community. Funding Love community. I think it's going to be so fun.
Yes, me too. And I know we briefly mentioned in that podcast as well who is going to be joining us. But why don't you remind our listeners on our book club episodes who's going to be joining us for those episodes.
Yeah, so it'll be Mal and I, of course, and then we're going to have Jessie Matos, who is a birth mom who traveled with us on our last Funding Love vacation. But she is a birth mom, so she's going to be the birth mom voice in these episodes. Then we also have Allison Olson, who is an adoptee, so she's going to be the adoptee voice. So the four of us will sit around and kind of review these books and talk about some of the feelings and the questions that arise as we debrief after we all read it. So that's going to be the hosts, I guess, that we're going to have some guest hosts with us on for those episodes throughout the year. But tell our listeners what book we have chosen for our first quarter, because we are going to be doing 4 books a year. Just as a reminder, we're going to be doing it quarterly. So our first quarter of the year, we have chosen a book.
And it is American Baby, A Mother, a Child, and the Shadow History of Adoption.
Yes.
I'm excited. I feel like you said you have thumbed through this book before, right? I have never read this book.
I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on a trip and I had just ordered it, and so I took it with me and I read through half of it real quick. And then I went home from vacation and life happened and I just haven't picked back up. So yeah. I'm excited to I'm actually going to start from the beginning as we read this and kind of read through it all. But it is a good, what I remember of that part that I read, it's so good because I love like World War II, post-war era when I read novels and books. And this is in that era, at least the foundation of it, the part that I read, the beginning of it, it talks about part of that era in history. So I like that part of it, but also it's just kind of riveting. It really is. And it's eye-opening. So I think it's good. But read to us the description of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a New York Times notable book. We're not just pulling some random one off the shelf. This is a critically acclaimed book. It says, the shocking truth about post-war adoption in America told through the bittersweet story of one teenager, the son she was forced to relinquish, and their search to find each other. In 1961, 16-year-old Margaret Earle fell in love and became pregnant. Her enraged family sent her to a maternity home, and after she gave birth, she wasn't even allowed to hold her own son. Social workers threatened her with jail until she signed away her parental rights. Her son vanished, his whereabouts and new identity known only to an adoption agency that would never share the slightest detail about his fate. American Baby illuminates a dark time in our history and shows a path to reunion that can help heal the wounds inflicted by years of shame and secrecy. So that is American Baby, and the author's name is Gabrielle Glaser, I believe is how you say her last name, Glaser. And you can find that book on Amazon. That's why I ordered mine. You can get a hardcover copy, or you can even download it on your Kindle, or most major retailer will probably sell it as well. I'm sure you can get it at Barnes & Noble's, Books A Million, whatever your local bookshop is. But we would love for our listeners to pick up a copy of American Baby or download that on your Kindle or phone.
Yes.
And join us. It's a kind of read at your own pace journey. So we're not going to say you have to read a chapter a week or you have to, have it all read by a certain time. But we would prefer for you to have it read by April 1st. That's going to be our podcast episode, right?
Yep, that's when we're going to all sit down in a circle and debrief the book. But I think since everybody's going to be reading probably at a different pace, if you have any questions, comments, anything that as you're reading, you're like, oh my gosh, I just need to know what this feels like from a birth mom's perspective, or what does that even mean? Or as an adoptee, just seeking out your, whatever it is, whatever the questions you have that come up, or even the comments that you just want to kind of share about the book, you can, I guess, just message us on Instagram or hello@fundinglove, and we will save all of those. Email us at hello@fundinglove.com, and we will save all of those comments and questions, and that way we have a whole slew to go through when we review it.
That's right. We will take your questions, your comments, your thoughts, and compile them together so that towards the end of our conversation, we will have a whole segment on readers' comments and questions. So we would love to give our co-hosts with us, Jessie and Allison, a chance to answer those questions for you, or Caitlin and I can from an adoptive mom perspective. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we cannot wait to see the community that we can build through the book club.
Yes, it's going to be good. I'm excited. I think this is something really fun to add, and I think it's going to be something new we add to our repertoire.
Yes,
to come.
I agree.
Because there's so many books. I mean, for us to choose this first book was kind of hard.
It was.
So, because there's a big list of books that we have compiled of like, okay, like what adoption sort of book do we want to read? Which ones? And so we have a lot. We have a long list. So we can be doing this for a while, which is exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was fun. This was fun to kind of set our intentions and our hopes and our dreams and goals for the new year. And we have some great guests coming up too for the podcast. So we are so thankful to our loyal listeners. Please continue to share our podcast, subscribe, and even on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, even if you don't watch or listen on YouTube, do it there because more people will find us. So
That's right.
We're so thankful for you as we start this next year. I'm excited. I'm thankful to be on this journey with you, Mel.
Me too, Caitlin. I couldn't be more happy. It's going to be a fantastic year, and I can't wait to get to it.
Same. So what a great episode. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode of the Funding Love Podcast. We will see you all next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Funding Love Podcast. We are a crowd-funded nonprofit, which means that people like you can help make a lasting impact in the lives of adoptive families and birth moms. At Funding Love, we create post-adoption experiences that strengthen bonds, build community, and restore people. And when you partner with us, whether that is giving online, signing up to become a monthly donor, or simply buying merchandise from our shop, you are funding love.